So let's move on to the next topic. So if I'm out there selling a product today, and you know, I think I think I know who my customers are. I mean, they're buying my product, but are there any red flags or warning signs that would help me understand whether I really do have that ideal client profile dialed in? Nate, any comment on that?
Yeah, well, one of the things is just looking at your overall sales process, looking at your pipeline, and seeing where things are getting stuck. Seeing where oftentimes you'll look and you'll see that there's a certain phase or stage that we keep seeing a lot of churn in. We're bringing people top of funnel. We think they're interested. We think they're the right people. But then as they go through the pipeline, there keep being this one barrier we can't get them over. And that often is a red flag of telling you need to start looking more at the data. You need to start looking at who these people are. What are they reacting to? When one of the things we do is when we're looking at an ideal client profile is we look at the different sales activities we have, and we start to measure the various different titles, the various different industries, company sizes, geographies, and just start seeing who is reacting to what. We may think it's one title, and that is the one that we've been pushing through the CRM, and that's the one that we can't get over the hump. And our close rate isn't what we hoped or expected it to be. But as we approach the data, we see that the people who are reacting most may be a completely different buyer. And having those insights triggered by that red flag of kind of this stalled out sales pipeline allows us to reshape and retarget who we should go after, and be able to align with marketing to say, here's what's reacting best. Here's what materials are driving interest and driving excitement towards a purchase decision. So going back to the data answers a lot of questions and solves a lot of problems if you can evaluate and test just what works best, what message resonates most, and what pushes and accelerates the sales process.
Nate, I would also say that on the flip side of the sales process, it's looking at your current customers again, and looking at churn and also customer acquisition costs. If you're finding that a lot of your closed deals are coming in and they're a nightmare to onboard, or they're churning after 3 months without ever really having fully adopted the product, then those are some big red flags that you're probably bringing in customers that aren't jiving with your customer success team. Maybe your onboarding materials aren't what they should be. Maybe your product isn't positioned for that audience. So those two metrics in themselves are a great place to start to figure out if you're on the flip side of the sales process, if who you're actually bringing in is worth it, right?
I think that's a good point, Ben. And I think that this plays back into, from a CEO's point of view, thinking about who is your most profitable customer and who is your best customer. And I think a lot of companies don't really know their most profitable customer and best. And so I think, I don't know how many times I've heard the story, and I'm sure you have too, Nate. The sales guy, and I sat there in a meeting and heard this myself, came in, he said, "Oh, I'm going to make my quarter." I was on the plane, and the guy sitting next to me, he loved what we do. He's definitely going to close. And I thought, okay, now look, I'm all into, a little bit of luck goes a long way, but the probability of that is super, super low. So what did the CEO ask them next that said, I'm going to forecast that or I'm not? And if you know your ideal client profile, you could ask that question to the sales guy right there and go, yeah, I'm going to give you 2% on that one, not 80% that you think it's going to be, right? And so I think you see those kind of very real world things if you can't really know who is my ideal client profile.
Yeah.
I think the other, for do-it-yourselfers, right? The other thing to think about is, you develop these ideal client profiles, and a lot of people, on the most extreme cases, look, if just 1% of all the people on Facebook use my product, then I'm rich. Yeah, no, it's not going to happen. On the other side, they say, my product it's perfect for this application. You say, okay, great. How many people have that problem? Well, I'm not really sure. Well, you should probably go find out because can you build a $50 million business on that, or a $100 million business on that, or a $2 or $3 million business on that? And so, you really got to know my ideal client profile may be too narrow, right? So I may have to broaden, my product offering, or new markets in order to get enough meat into the funnels that will close.
We that's a great point, Jeff. We call this like the unicorn syndrome, and we see it a lot in small businesses where they'll land that unicorn, and it's highly profitable. They didn't see it coming. It's maybe a new industry or a new market for them, and they push all their chips in on it because they feel like we need 1,000 more of those. And they create a whole profile around this exception rather than the rule. And they spend a lot of time chasing after that next unicorn, very frustrated, have spent a lot of money, yet they aren't able to duplicate the same success they've had. It's just a not very scalable effort. And it goes back to a little bit what Ben was talking about, is going back and looking at your customer profile of maybe your last 5 to 10 closes. And these closes have to be outbound closes, and sort of evaluate the customer journey and say, all right, what was our first touch point? Who was that person? How did they influence someone, or was that the direct buyer? And when we talk to them, they close every time. Oftentimes people look at what made big success or major success they had, and that becomes their new north. And will cause a lot of problems and even churn within their sales organization, because they're just frustrated chasing something that's just not paying off.
That's just great feedback. Ben and Nate, thanks for chiming in. I think there's a lot of really helpful information in there.